What if we are not just in the universe, but the universe is within all of us?
Think about quantum entanglement. Two electrons, once bonded together, in love, if you will, suddenly separated by a galaxy, but somehow still just as connected. An unbroken union despite being galaxies apart.
And our most recent calculations show us that these fields connect us to other dimensions. Dimensions outside of the limitations of space and time. Imagine that, imagine. Rather than enduring the oppressive rules of time and space, we could wrinkle it. 91 billion light years traveled like that.
And that's a clip from A Wrinkle in Time, and I'm delighted to say that its director, Ava DuVernay, joins us. Hello, Ava, how are you?
Hello, happy to be here.
Are you enjoying the whole razzmatazz?
The razzmatazz, yes, I am, and love being in London, especially on a rainy day.
We were talking about you on the show just a couple of weeks ago. David Oyelowo was on the programme, and it's just worth mentioning again, I think, because I don't think there is a single actor who could say that he had worked with 3 different women directors on 3 consecutive films.
Yes, it's very impressive.
So, which was you for Selma, Amara Santi with United Kingdom, and Mira Nair for Queen of Katwe.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive.
It's pretty spectacular, and it's purposeful. I mean, he's very intentional about that work, so yeah. I'm so proud of him.
A Wrinkle in Time, the book came out in 1962. It's a big deal in America. I think less well known in the UK. Tell us about the story that you kind of received from the book and what you've done to it in your movie.
Yeah, the book was widely read and loved in the States. It's been translated into 100 languages all over the world in the last 50 years, but it's something that's taken hold in the United States where it's even assigned in schools in about the 7th or 8th grade, sometimes the 6th grade. And it's really about love. It's about the idea that we can plant these seeds in children about the big themes in life, good and evil, dark and light, just at the time that they're grappling with understanding what that is. And so specifically, it's about a girl whose father is lost. She finds out that he's lost in the universe through a science experiment, and she has to go find him, but can't figure out how to do that until these 3 celestial beings come to her aid. And from there, she goes on all these fantastic adventures and uses her intellect, not her beauty, not her money, not any superpowers. She's not a Jedi. She uses the fact that she knows math really well and loves science and has a big heart, and that's how she solves her problems and saves the day.
It's an interesting mixture of quantum physics and kind of magical space exploration.
Yeah, that's all in the book. I mean, that's why early on my folks that were close to me were saying this is an unadaptable book. I mean, it's all about math and quantum physics and just these really kind of large emotional themes wrapped up in a science fiction, fantasy extravaganza. How do you bring that to the screen? And so it is. It's a really, really challenging book, but I don't think it was unfilmable. And for me, it was worth the risk, worth the try, because of Disney's desire to make it a little girl of color at the center. For me, that was quite emotional.
Was that their idea or your idea? Did you say, can I do it like this?
I asked if I could do it, and they joined me in the idea and supported it wholeheartedly. And for me, it's very emotional because I used to love those films growing up. I loved Never Ending Story. I loved these films where kids got to fly and take adventures, but those films never loved me back. I never saw myself in them. There were hardly any girls, and there's certainly no people of color, and really no black girls. And so to have the opportunity to make one of these with a girl at the center who felt like so many girls of color, awkward, unsure, really took hold of my heart and just had to do it.
Tell us about Storm Reid then, who is your amazing star. I mean, she really is terrific. What did you say to her? What were you looking for from her?
She's aptly named. She's a force of nature. This girl's 13 years old when we made the movie. She's in every frame of the movie. She goes through a full range of emotion in the film. I was looking for a deeply rooted actor. It's hard to find at 13 years old. I got lucky. It was a girl who wasn't just reading the lines, but that she was in a deeply feeling place. I mean, I really compare her process and the way that she really internalized what was going on to working with David in preparing Dr. King. I mean, she really was searching for something that she could do in her 13-year-old capacity to get to something deeper than what was on the page.
Just to clarify, are you saying that she arrived on set to work for you in the same way that David Oyelowo arrived on set to play Martin Luther King?
In terms of preparation, yes, for her at 13 years old, thinking deeply about the parts, researching the parts, studying physics, trying to get her hands on everything about the history of the book, the character. She came more prepared than most actors who are playing roles in my TV shows or my movies. Wow. She came as prepared in her 13-year-old capacity as David came prepared to play Dr. King, above and beyond. And so she brought that commitment to the part in a way that was really beautiful to see in a young girl just starting her career. I mean, my hope for her is that Hollywood treats her well. You know, there are so many girls who have gone on to great fame and great projects at an early age. Natalie Portman, Jennifer Lawrence, Jodie Foster, but those girls aren't black girls. And Hollywood, hasn't been extremely kind to black actresses in terms of the breadth and width of parts that are being made available to them. And so my hope is that Hollywood is kind to Storm Reid because she's a soft heart in a hard world, and she really deserves it.
This isn't, I believe, a trivial point, but explain about the importance of her hair.
There's a storyline in the film that parallels a story in the book. In the book, the character Meg Murray has frizzy hair, they call it, and she doesn't like her hair. Her hair's not like her mother's hair. And so we took the idea of that and contemporized it as we make Storm Reid an African-American girl to deal with issues of European standards of beauty that black women are often measured against. In terms of our hair, it's a very personal part of a black woman's identity and grappling with what society says it prefers in terms of what our hair looks like and who you are and what grows out of your head. And so I'm just interested in girls having options and their natural hair being an option. So it gets into a very specific conversation among African-American women. And I love that we were able to parallel Meg Murray's journey in literature with her hair with a contemporary version that's more specific in the movie.
And when we see, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, but when we see, in quotes, a better version of herself later on in the film, she has straight hair.
It's not a better version of herself. It's an idealized version of herself. It's a version that mirrors the bullies and the girls at school who dress better, who look a little bit more posh, who are more hip than our Meg with her glasses. So this girl doesn't have glasses. Her hair's done at the beauty shop. She has on a cute outfit. And Meg is presented with a version of herself that is her ideal. And so the question in that moment and what her challenge is do you accept an empty version of your idealized self or a full version of your flawed self? And so these are some of the things that this movie is for children. It's a movie for kids, designed for kids ages 7 to 14. And these are the kinds of things we found kids are thinking about. That's why this book has endured in the United States, because it really hits that sweet spot of when a kid is trying to figure out who they are in this dark, divisive world and where they stand and find their voice. And so yeah, those are some of the issues that the book deals with in the film.
And I wonder, having made, we mentioned Selma and 13th and other weighty, significant films with heft, that working on a film like this was a joy because there was so much lightness and because of the message that you're trying to put over.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this film has heft. It may not be dramatic heft, but there's a weight to it because it's important to me to express the things that I value as an artist to all different kinds of people through all different kinds of genres. I look at someone like Steven Spielberg, who's been able to go from E.T. to Schindler's List to BFG to The Post, the flexibility and the muscularity with being able to have options. When you look at all of those films, most of his films have a through line about what he wants to say as an artist, and I want to be able to do that as well. So I don't see the through line or the main point of something like Selma being much different than Wrinkle in Time. It's about love and justice and how we treat one another. And it's just in the skin of something that appeals to children.
And maybe an imagined world that's better than this one.
Sometimes.
There's one scene that stayed with me, which is sort of over and done with in a matter of seconds. But it's where we see Storm on her own, scary, lots of kind of bad, scary things happening. And she's holding out her hand to her boyfriend, for want of a better word. But we're watching a 13-year-old biracial girl holding out her hand to a white boyfriend saying, "Trust me and follow me. I will be the one that takes you to say, do you trust me?" And it's sort of gone in a couple of seconds, but I'm not sure I'd seen that before.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I made the film. There were a couple of reasons. I wanted to see this girl of color fly. Because I always watch these films, and the girl is never the hero, and certainly not the person of color. And so I went to see her fly. She does it a couple times in the film. But that scene that you talk about is so important, where a girl, period, of any kind, holds out her hands and says, "Do you trust me?" to a boy at a key point of danger. And he says, without blinking, "Yes, I trust you." And he takes her hand and they go her direction. I think those are radical images. And when you add to that the nuance of race, it becomes really, I think, quite revolutionary in a space of youth fantasy. And I think if you can plant those seeds in the fertile ground of a child's mind now, not just for black girls, but for Caucasian boys to be able to see, oh, I can follow her. Oh, it's okay to have an equal relationship. I'm on par with her and she's on par with me. If we can create these discussions and kind of instigate this conversation among young people now, I think we'll have some better adults in the future.
I just want to mention one other passion of yours, which is referred to, I think, in the opening line of the movie, where Chris Pine, who is the father, who is about to disappear, says to his daughter, and she's trying on dark glasses, do you want to be Bono or Van Halen? Yes, yeah. And she says Bono, and then we move on, and she's got the dark glasses, and you're a huge U2 fan.
I am.
and Mark, who's the critic on the show, can't stand U2, and it's like,
no, Mark, what is wrong with you?
Okay, so now tell him why it's so important to you and why you put that little reference right at the start of your film.
Well, I thought it was important to show that different kinds of people like different kinds of music. I remember there was an early review. Like I say, I don't lean into them, but this one kind of irked me. An early review, I think it was out of the LA Times or something, where they couldn't believe my first film was called I Will Follow, based on a U2 song. And they thought it was unrealistic that I would name my film that because I knew nothing about U2. Not knowing that as a black girl from Compton, which is the inner city in America, in the United States, on the West Coast, that I'd been to 27 U2 concerts. It gets into this whole idea of who can like what, who can love what, and that art can't be embraced by, that art is segregated. And that really irks me. So I am a big U2 fan. I love Bono. I would choose his glasses any day over anyone else. I don't care, Mark. You were wrong. U2 is fantastic.
Boom. There you go. That's fantastic. And finally, Ava, do you think that, I mean, we've addressed this issue quite a bit on the program recently, do you think that, to express it bluntly, are you and Ryan Coogler a trend, or are you an anomaly?
I think they're the same
Barry
thing.
Jenkins as well.
I think it is the same thing. A trend is something that's is of the moment. An anomaly is something that is not normal. And I think both are true. I think if we want to create real change, we have to really look at the underlying systems. It's easy to celebrate the moment. Jordan Peele, Dee Reese, myself, Ryan Coogler, Barry Jenkins, Steve McQueen. But it's a handful of us. I've counted people on one hand, 2 hands. Thousands of films are being made out of the United States and around the world. And there's too few people that look different or that are different in terms of being black, being a woman. So right now, I'd say we are a trend and we are an anomaly. And I'd like to just be around long enough so that we know for sure that both are not true, that we are the norm, and I hope we can get there.
Ava DuVernay, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.